Lots and lots of things going through my mind, Terry. Poor, 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 poor by Arsenal today. Very, very poor. First half, well, let's start from the beginning of the game. The players, to me, looked like, they just thought they could turn up at Goodison Park and just take the result because of how poor Everton have been this season. And we should know that all games in the Premier League are not just as easy as turning up. Yes, we've been excellent this season, and yes, Everton have been poor. But with Sean Dyche as their manager, I expected them to come a bit resolute and be hard to break down. And that's exactly what they was. And in the first half, we lost that midfield battle. We really, really, really was so poor in the midfield. It was unreal. And I agree with Arteta for hooking Partey because he didn't look himself today. And I agree with him for hooking Martinelli as well. However, when it comes to the second half, this is where it's Arteta's fault now, right? Because, as I said, we could see in the first half we're losing the midfield battle. We could see that Arsenal are trying to play through the middle. We've got Zinchenko inverting into the midfield. We're trying to create that extra man in middle. Now, when you're being shut down in midfield like that, you need to try and create width. Now, the reason why Martinelli was so poor today is because when Zinchenko's inverted, he's got nobody to overlap him. And Ben White wasn't overlapping Saka either. So that's why Saka was kind of, not in the game either. So to me, I think Arteta should have changed it by putting Kieran Tierney on and allowing Kieran Tierney to make the overlapping runs. I would have told Ben White, you need to start overlapping a bit more, otherwise you're coming off. And then sort of try to drag their midfielders out wide to create the space in the middle. But we didn't do that. We carried on just trying to play through the middle. But then on top of that, Terrell, there were so many individual bad performances today. It was unreal. Eddie Nketiah, you might as well have stayed at home, bro. Like, every time Zinchenko got the ball and he had a bit of time on the ball, I was thinking, just pass it, bro, pass it. And then when I actually really deeped it and watched it properly, he had no movement in front of him. Nketiah wasn't making any form of runs. Saka wasn't. Martinelli wasn't. They was just completely marked out of the game. And that's why you have to change it tactically if you're the manager, I think. You can't just continue to keep playing the same way. And we see this already, like you've had a super chat about it. We see this already against Newcastle, and Newcastle nullified us. But Everton did it better today because they got a goal, which brings me on to the goal. Why on earth is Martin Odegaard picking up Tarkowski for a corner? Look at the size difference between the two. Like, it baffles me, bro. Like, why have you got Martin Odegaard picking up Tarkowski? At least put Saliba or Gabriel or Granit Xhaka, somebody big, physical. Martin Odegaard. Like, it didn't make no sense to me. And all these super chats about Jorginho, look, I'm an Arsenal fan who did not want Jorginho. I made that very clear. But to sit there and say it's Jorginho's fault today, I don't think that's right. However, we do still have to question, have we done enough in this transfer market to get us over the line? And if we consistently start to have performances like this, then you'd have to say no. But at the moment, it's one game. It's also worrying, though, Terry, because I know it's the FA Cup, so it's different, but this is 2 losses in a row now. We've got Brentford next. And look, don't think Brentford's going to be an easy game because they have slapped up some big teams this season. And then Manchester City straight after. This is going to be a telltale time for Arsenal now. And Mikel Arteta and them players need to get this right if we're to win the league.
Listen, I understand your frustrations. Obviously, Jess and Igal are here with us as well. Igal, do you concur with what Brandon has said there, or do you see this defeat today as different? Like, what's your take on it, mate?
I felt like it was one of our worst performances this season, and I just looked at this game as we just continuously dropped intensity. Usually whenever we have a situation where we don't look good, we find a moment in the game where you see us, you see us at our best, you see us click into gear, you see us moving the ball a little bit faster, and everyone starts picking themselves up and everyone starts to get themselves going. But that just never came today. There was a small moment when just before we subbed off Thomas Partey and Martinelli, where I thought we were gonna do something, but then I don't know what happened from there, but first half we were just letting them in too easily. Defensively, we were letting them get in too easily. It looked like they had the numerical advantage almost everywhere on the pitch because they kept themselves solid. And I got to give Sean Dyche and Everton a lot of credit. Arsenal today, we weren't on our job, and I just felt like we went into the game like I don't want it to make it about feelings, but I feel like we went into the game saying, you know what, it doesn't matter how they set up, we're going to stick to our plan. And when we seen that it wasn't working, I think Mikel Arteta maybe should have done something different. But hey, he got us here to this point. I'm not going to criticize him too much. I just feel like just one of those days. Every great team takes a loss here and there eventually in the season. It's our second loss of the season. I'm not gonna go crazy about it. If this continues, then I'll be more concerned. But at this moment in time, I'll just count it as a blip, and we keep moving.
Yeah, just real quickly, questions have to be asked though as well, right? Because if I might be wrong, but if I'm right, I believe the last time we beat Everton at their ground was 2017. Mikel Arteta hasn't beaten Everton at their ground since he's been manager. That is just like, no matter who the manager is for Everton, we haven't managed to beat them. Like, that's poor. So poor.
No, but look,
what is the significance of Everton, though? I don't think it's really about he's never beaten Everton before in his career. I think that's insignificant. I think it's more about what choices he made on today that, hurt us against this Everton side. To be quite honest, like 2017 is not Arteta's season. He didn't get hired till 2019. So for me, there's no correlation there. I thought he made an error once he took Thomas Partey out. I think if we had kept him on, injured or not, whatever it was, I think he panicked a little bit, and then decided, okay, well, we'll try to get more possession. We'll get more possession now. But we conceded right after Jorginho and Trossard came on. And then from there, they didn't really sit back or anything like that. So don't take Thomas Partey out. That's the name of the game. Don't do that, because all the physicality was gone. And then he took out Odegaard and put in Fabio Vieira. And from there, I was just like, they're just going to run us to death. But I would like to say like we're due a loss and all that kind of stuff. But like, I think this was kind of avoidable. At least we should have gotten a point out of that game. The corner defending all game for me was suspect. Like, it just looked like we were panicked back there. And we just got sucked up by the new manager bounce. And that's not, it's okay to lose because there's a new manager in the dugout. It's just, we couldn't handle the crowd. We couldn't really get our game going. Everybody was kind of holding on to the ball too long. It was just very pedestrian from Arsenal. And I can only name two players that I thought played decent, and that's Gabriel and Saka. Everybody else was just really, really poor. And so they just have to pick it up and win the game against Brentford. That's the next step. You can't throw everything out and just capitulate from here, because this is our second loss of the season, but it can't become 2 loss, 3 loss, 4 loss. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm disappointed. Like that, I don't ever want to see that game again. Like, that was a nightmare, but what can you do? Like, they got sucked in by the new manager bounce, and, and I'm disappointed by some of the senior players out there, because I thought Xhaka was awful. I thought, Zinchenko didn't cover himself in glory. And these are the guys that need to push us over the line. And so, yeah.
I think when you look at a team and you have so as many poor performances as we had especially in that first half, going into the second half, you would think that there would be something that would click into gear, something that we would change. Nothing changed. And when nothing changed going into the second half. And is that on Mikel Arteta, or is that on the players to get themselves up for this game? Because I feel like there was a level of arrogance potentially going into this game.
Go on, Jessica. I'll go after. Go on, Jessica.
No, like my thing is, like, even last season there was this element of like, it's not as bad as it was last season, but like, if we don't start off well, that's it. You know what I mean? And like, we were really, really poor, and there was nothing within me that made me feel like we would come back. Like usually if we're bad, we're just bad. The subs don't help. Nothing helps. And last season, that's kind of how it was too. This season, we've played well, but conceded and come back. But I guess my question, like, for Arteta and the team would be, so if we're not playing well, how are we need to win ugly. You know, we need to be able to win ugly regardless. And I didn't see that today. Because if we're not going to play well every single game, but if we have to have tons of time on the ball and tiki-taka and all the possession to play well, then we're screwed because the blueprint is out there now. You know, they know how to play against us now. So you need to be able to win ugly and make it happen. So many players were asleep today. It was wild.
So you're saying it's the blueprint to beat us.
If you needed a reason for Mikel Arteta to need to change that in the second half, just look at how many shots on target we had. There's barely any. I don't even really remember us creating or mustering up a decent chance. We had a couple of half chances, but nothing like that screams out a proper like goal scoring chance. So yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. That's how you listen. I'm taking nothing away from Everton. They really, really did deserve their win. But to your question, Igal, I'd throw it back at you and I'll just ask this back. If your manager would have made those subs and you'd have overtook the game and won, you would say Arteta masterclass, Arteta's a genius. So I think for me, the way I always look at managers is if they're going to get huge praise when you win games, huge praise for your development, huge praise for in-game decision making. If the in-game decisions make you, because I don't think you were as good after Partey come off. Everton sat back more because they were winning, so they allowed you a little bit more of the ball, but I don't think you improved. So I think you don't blame the whole thing on Arteta, but my point would be surely some of it has to go on him because if those subs worked and Trossard scored a brace, I think Agal, you'd sit there and say Arteta masterclass. Well, he made the changes to try and change the game, and you went backwards. So for me, I think I would say about on today's game, I think about 70% the manager, 30% the players. When you look at those, nothing he did changed the way you played and performed. But then you've got a handful of players, as you've said, Xhaka, Partey, Martinelli, Nketiah. Those four, for me, really stood out as poor today, and that isn't directly on Arteta. That's
also like the thing is like he made the change on a corner. I think was the corner. Did we make the change on the corner, or did the changes happen and then the corner was conceded?
Because I need to look at just before the corner.
Because my whole thing was like, if Thomas Partey had been there, he would have been on Tarkowski, not Odegaard. I don't think we had enough like physicality in that box. You know, I'm not. I guess
a minute later, Jess.
Okay, so from my perspective, it's just a little bit unlucky that like we concede the goal in a moment where I think he brought those subs on to change the game, and also because we thought we'd have more possession. But at the same time, I just wonder why when we make substitutions, sometimes, especially when we're in a difficult moment, I don't see any change. I just kind of see us trying the same things over and over again. I didn't see us try to be more direct. I didn't see us like, what's the difference between losing 1-0 and 2-0? You know, throw another attacker on, take a defender off, like go for it. We need to win. So it's just Arteta made a mistake today. He was perfect against Man United, perfect in other instances, not good today. It is what it is. You know, I don't think
exactly that because a lot of people are getting on at Martinelli, right, about his first half performance, and he was awful. He deserved to come off. Don't get this twisted, right? But when you look at Trossard's second half performance and compare it to Martinelli's first half performance, there's not much difference really. Trossard looked like he, maybe did a little bit more, had a bit more about him than what Martinelli did in the first half. But apart from that, he was just as isolated as what Martinelli was. So it has to be a tactical change that comes from the manager. Has to be.
Listen, at the end of the day, I don't disagree with you guys. I do feel like the manager is culpable, and he is at fault for not changing the game and impacting the game, because we were losing. It felt like we were losing the game from like the 20th minute mark because these guys were getting
like
in
the
behind
10th minute mark.
So he should have done something. But when it comes to Arteta and how much blame we're going to put on the team and Arteta, honestly, I really don't care. The result is done. At this moment in time, we have to take the negatives from this game and see how we can flip that and turn them into positives. We were not clinical today. We didn't really get any good chances. I need us shooting more and not just passing around the box. I need us to take more of our clear-cut chances away from home. We don't have the luxury to walk the ball into the back of the net every single game. There's going to be moments where we need to just take our chances when we have it. And I felt like Granit Xhaka, I'm not just making fun of him. Odegaard has done this in the past and he's gotten better at it. Players in and around the box are always trying to make that extra pass. Sometimes just fire it and see what you can do. And you know what? The decision making was poor from in the final third. And also defensively, it wasn't nearly defensively. It was more the midfield. The midfield was getting overrun so much that we couldn't really gain control of the game. So in that situation, Mikel Arteta is culpable, and he should have done something to resolve that issue. Because numerically, they had us, because they had a 4-man defense and they had a 5-man midfield basically, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin was by himself.
Yeah.